Welcome to the Spinwhiz Comics Show.
Whoa.
From Raleigh, North Carolina. Join us for exclusive interviews with the publishers bringing you the newest titles in indie comics, webcomics, movies, and more.
No way.
And now, here's your host, Jeff Palumbo.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stream. Happy Sunday night. I'm not sure if anybody's necessarily happy on a Sunday night because usually you start work on Monday. But at least most of us don't have to go anywhere. Usually you just go downstairs or go upstairs or go into another room and there you are. So anyway, welcome to the stream. It's great having you here. We have an amazing show tonight. Travis Gibb from Orange Cone Productions is actually on with me. Travis and I have been friends for probably about 6-7 months. He came on about 4 months ago with what title we have, which I'll be sharing, which is Broke Down in 4 Dead Bodies right here on Spinwhiz Comics. Now he has something new coming out. It's a Kickstarter. It's called VOODOO Nations. It looks sick. But I don't want to talk about it. I want him to talk about it. So, and I know that you don't want to be looking at me the whole night because Travis is way better looking. He even told me he wore cologne just for tonight. And that makes me feel special because I thought I was the only one that wore cologne for myself. So I'm super pumped. So here he is, bringing him in, Mr. Travis Gibb. Boom. There it is. Travis,
Hello,
how are you?
Hello, how are you?
Dude, if I knew you were drinking, I would have cracked a beer.
I mean, I can entertain the crowd if you want to run. But yes, I have a Guinness Drought. I always recommend Guinness.
Ooh, very nice. How is it?
Oh, I love a Guinness. It's got a good, you can't see it, but there's a beautiful Magneto. You can see it a little bit. You'll see it when it's empty.
Magneto,
we'll
yeah.
Get there. We'll get there.
A little frosting, if you will.
Yeah, so what's going on?
Hey, buddy, I am here for you. I have a lot going on. You and I can talk about that in a little bit, but you, my friend, have a ton going on. Have you slept in the last, say, 6 days? When did you launch the Kickstarter?
It was 3 days. 3 days. So we're on a third day now. Thursday. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So this is a fourth day. It's the fourth day of the Kickstarter. We just hit 50% today. We're creeping on up. We're actually doing really well today. Saturday, apparently people had better things to do than back my Kickstarter.
I don't understand how.
I was offended. I mean,
I mowed a lawn, but then I came in and I just checked it out. I mean, you've been doing fantastic. So let me drop the link in. For those of you that are live on Facebook, thanks for being here. It's awesome to have you. That's what we like. We like some interaction. But for those of you that are actually watching on YouTube, don't worry about it. Just look below, right? Below Travis and I, there is this big part called description. And in said description, there's a link to the Kickstarter. We're going to get into VOODOO Nations in a second. We're going to review that. Then we're going to talk about some content that he has on Spinwhiz. We're going to talk about things that might be coming up. We're going to talk to him about how awesome he is and why. And just in general, I mean, we're just going to kind of shoot it a little bit. That's what we're going to do. I try to keep things PG-13. I try, but I've had people on that throw F-bombs, and then I will also throw one in just so people don't feel, like they did something wrong.
So they feel included.
Yeah,
that's nice.
Yeah, I don't want to put anybody out. So feel free to ask questions. If you're live, feel free to ask questions. Even if you're on YouTube, feel free to ask questions. It's all good. The links will be there. It's supposed to be interactive. It's supposed to be fun because we work in comics. And comics, I think everybody sometimes forgets that they're supposed to be fun.
Right.
I mean, it's supposed to be. So let's get right into it. VOODOO Nations, give me the pitch. What do we got going on here?
The comic book or about VOODOO Nations in general?
Well, I mean, let's get the background first, and then how you came up with it, and because it's different. It's definitely different than your normal, or at least it's different than Broke Down in 4 Dead Bodies.
Right. Yeah. It's different, but the same at the same time. So, VOODOO Nations, what it does, it's about 2 missionaries, they're husband and wife, and they go off to Brazil to help with a flood. A flood has devastated the area, and this is a real flood that happened in 2019 in January. I can't think of the name of the flood, but it killed about 500 people. They come down, they come help, but they invade a voodoo priest territory. That voodoo priest then has a vendetta against them and causes their life to turn upside down as they realize that voodoo is not only very real, but very, very powerful. And this sends them world trekking to New Orleans, to Mexico, all over the place to figure out a cure for a certain ailment that you'll have to figure out what happens in the first issue to find out what that ailment is.
Damn. So this is brand new, right? This is number 1.
Yes, brand new number 1. This is a story based on for the pandemic. It was a story that I had in my folder. Any writer worth anything has a folder of things that if someone says, hey, pitch me some ideas, you can pull it out and pitch it. This is one of those situations. Someone in Corona happened. They had a lot of time. They said, hey, I'd love to work a story with you. I pitched them an idea, and off we went. So, yeah, we got VOODOO Nations going, Luke Stone. Love the idea. I actually was pitching it to him to find me an artist for a different company because this was supposed to be published under a different company, not Orange Cone. But we can get into that in a minute. And he took it, he loved it, and wanted to do it. He is a pastor himself, and since there's a lot of religion in the story, like he really dug it.
Damn. So you had mentioned that the fact that it may or may not have been through another company, and then something happened and it dropped into Orange Cone. Tell me more.
Yeah.
Do you want to get into that?
Sure, I'll get into anything. I'm not afraid of anything.
This is also true.
It was supposed to go with Starcross Comics. Starcross Comics is a great company. They're a small Christian company. And they were doing well, but Luke Stone was really the cornerstone of that group. He had done a few books with them. He'd helped them do a whole bunch of stuff. And then that wasn't working out for him. So he kind of stepped away. There was another creator on the team, not the main thing, but another creator on the team posting a lot of very, very hateful things during the Black Lives Matter movement and the riots. And I was just like, I don't really want my book associated with that in the same realm of that. Because it was pretty hateful things that I think he would be fired from other publishers. But he was not. And since that was the case, Luke Stone had already moved on to another publisher. We just decided to produce it under Orange Cone Productions and allow it to sit there.
Awesome. And I think it's probably going to work out better. I mean, how many titles does Orange Cone have right now?
So we have 4 technically. So we have Broke Down 4 Dead Bodies, the main title. I have Parallels, which is my anthology work. VOODOO Nations is 3, and then Cthulhu Invades Oz later on this year will be published under Orange Cone Productions.
Oh, that's right. I've been seeing. We've talked about that on the side.
Yeah. Everything on Orange Cone has to be written by me. That's the only rule by it. I'm not really a publisher. My stuff eventually, I want it to be sold to another publisher for them to produce me. But, I have no problem doing the work. I'm a marketing guy. I have no problem getting the book out there myself and self-publishing it. But the goal is eventually to get some other stuff. So if you are a writer or an artist, I'm really not interested in your stuff. If you want to collaborate with me, we can do something. But the publishing company is really just for me. It's not necessarily for any other works.
That's still awesome. I mean, a lot of people now can self-publish. I mean, I was talking to somebody the other day, and they had said, well, now I want to get my stuff published by, I think it was Image. And I'm like, that's great. And then my next question was, well, you already did all the work. Why? Like, can you not do it yourself? I said, you did the hard part. And they're like, well, aren't they going to pay us for it? I'm like, well, if you can. I'm like, that's part of what you want to pitch to a bigger name to, or a publishing house, so that they can take it, use their marketing, use their networking, pick up the print prices and things of that nature. He's like, I already have print. And I'm like, okay. So, I mean, do you find that you can do a lot of it yourself? But obviously, if it's somebody like Image, Boom, Valiant, Dark Horse, one of the big 5 or 6 outside of Marvel and DC, that's helpful? Let's educate
this person.
I love it.
So to get into Image, it's going to cost you $2,500 to $3,000, just so you know. And someone's like, what? How does that work? You have to print the books. That's still on you. You get to use their discount. You're going to get a hell of a lot more books than you'd ever get. But you have to do an Image size print run, not a Travis Gibb print run, right? I can print as little as 25 copies or as many as 2, 3, 5, however many thousands I want. My average print size, just because I'm bringing up here, is about 1,500. That's what I print for an issue 1, and then I print a little bit less each time. And I'm almost sold out of Breakdown number 1. I got about 300 left, maybe. No, less than that, like 200 left of issue 1. About 300 of issue 2, and about 500 of issue 3, but that just came out. So if you're going to publish with those companies, that doesn't really help you. Now, some of the other bigger ones, they're going to pay for your art too. Now, that's a completely different game changer if they're paying for your art, building your stuff, building your brand. But again, a lot of times with that pay comes ownership, right? So
yep.
you're paying for it either way. You just don't realize it. So yeah, I'm all about doing it. But if I'm going to do something like that, I'm going to go to like a Scout or SourcePoint Press that allows me to do my Kickstarter thing, and then they're going to try to take it on the Diamond side. Now, I can take it on Diamond myself, but that takes away marketing time for me to produce a new comic. So I'd rather hand that off to them. But that's after I basically said, hey, this is the max money I can make of it. You can take it,
Yep. And with Diamond kind of going kaputski, that throws a little wrench into that, which honestly it hurts. It hurts Diamond's current flow and the people who only know how to do that flow, but it really, in my opinion, has a way to really help indies. Now, granted, I was designing Spinwhiz to help disrupt that anyway. It just happens that now I don't need to disrupt it because it's gone. Sort of gone.
Yeah, it's around. It exists.
it exists somewhere. It just doesn't exist in the fact that they don't have DC throwing tons and tons of copies into them anymore. So they're going to have to pivot as well if they want to stay alive.
And people don't realize that digital is the future, regardless of whether or not you like it. Mm-hmm. I totally want physical. I'm a physical guy. I buy all my comic books physical. But at the end of the day, if you can get me to a point where I can somehow get it cheap enough where I feel that the digital is the way to go, and I can get more comics and more reading, I'm willing to buy that tablet just for my comics. It's not there yet, but if it ever is, stuff in, far more readers are reading digital than physical these days. Mm-hmm. I mean, look at the torrents. And just talking, I'm not counting companies like Spinwhiz or Comixology. I'm not counting any of those. Just look at a torrent site who are downloading comics. You'll look at the downloads are more than the sales. So it's happening.
Yeah, it most definitely is happening. That's why I tell a lot of indie people that your main goal in the beginning should be just to get readership, because people are going to find a way to torrent all your stuff anyway. And that's why we tell most people, just put it up there and let them read it, because then we're going to, with print on demand, and eventually, because you are one of the few that actually have copies in your house, right? In the next probably 3 to 4 months, we'll be able to hook into you direct, and then we just give you alerts and you can ship them out.
Right, but even that print on demand, we talked about that the other day. So, I'll announce it on this show. We already talked about it. So, Jeff and I have been talking for months. So, my first issue of Broke Down in 4 Dead Bodies, I produced a black and white noir edition, made 100 copies, and they sold out almost instantly. They're completely gone. I don't have any more. I don't even have one for myself, to believe it or not. Yeah, I don't have a single one for myself. But I am going to upload all the noir editions for 1, 2, 3. And when people buy a Broke Down issue, issue 2 will have a cover in the back that shows noir edition that doesn't exist. Spinwhiz is going to have those exclusively for a time to print those up. So they're print on demand. We're going to give them the files. We're going to have that there, and they're going to order it from Spinwhiz. You're going to be able to order it from them if you want that black and white. And I totally get people who love crime in black and white. Stray Bullets was done that way. Criminals, kind of like a color palette. So we definitely want to get that on their platform.
Yes, and we want to sell the hell out of it for you.
Yeah.
Because I think that people are really going to enjoy your content. Now, I will tell everybody right now that while I have seen most of your content, VOODOO Nations I have not.
Yeah.
We had, you and I had spoken about it briefly, super brief in the mix of things that we were talking about over the last couple of months. So
Right.
I actually haven't even seen it. Most people give me an insight. They're like, hey, I'm going to send you the digital. Don't ship it out to anybody, but I want you to see it before the Kickstarter. But even this one kind of slid under the radar for me because we had other discussions going on. And it kind of just popped up. I remember you sent me a note. You're like, hey, Kickstarter is going live tomorrow. I'm like, wait, what? What? Or it was a week ago. Yeah. Hey, and I'm like, hey, why don't you be on the show? You're like, that'd be perfect. And it just kind of happened just like that, where usually I know months ahead of time when people are pitching something, so I'm super happy to be able to A, have you on the show, but B, that it looks badass. Is it the same artist that's drawing? It looks different in artists than who you had for Broke Down.
Yeah. It's a completely different artist. His name's Luke Stone. He does a book called
Hybrids.
Hybrids.
That was the artist. Okay.
Yeah, that he does Voodoo Nations. Yeah, Felix Navarra does my Broke Down in 4 Dead Bodies.
Oh, okay. And where did you find Luke?
So, as you know, I'm a helpful guy on the internet. So
you are.
If you know me from any of the groups, if you post a question that you need something, I'm going to help you. So I looked at Luke. I looked at what he was doing. He was on his 5th issue, and his Kickstarters weren't producing as well as I thought they should. And it was interesting because I didn't know this at the time. His Indiegogos did fantastic. Just for some reason, he just couldn't find the Kickstarter audience. So I taught him how to do his Kickstarter a little bit, educated on how to make it better. And he had his most successful campaign he's ever had. And with that became a friendship, and that friendship led to this.
Bam. There you go. Awesome. Yeah, I've told people in the past that the reason Spinwhiz Comics started as a distribution platform is because my Kickstarter failed miserably. Like,
yeah, you've told me that.
Absolutely horrid, real bad. If I were to total up failures in my life, that is literally in the top 5 of things that I have just botched.
Wow.
Yeah. Now I've done a lot of good stuff too, so that offsets it obviously. But yeah, it just is bad. And people have asked me to kickstart Chimera again.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah. Like, so if I come to you and I'm like, Travis, I need help. That's probably why.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it's an art.
It is. There's certain things, and especially for marketing guys, we don't see them because we're just like, let's show you the project, let's show you this, buy it. But Kickstarter is more of a feelings platform, meaning the people who back stuff, they want to know that it matters to them, that this project is powerful and that has some emotional tick to it. Like, they care about a lot of things that no one else cares about, right? If it was at the store, at the comic store, nobody would care about that. So marketing guys tend to not do really well on Kickstarter because here's the market. Here's what it is. You like it or not, take it or leave it, because that's what we're taught in marketing, you know?
Yep.
It's just a numbers game, but that's not Kickstarter game. Kickstarters, they want to know that they're part of this process. They want to be part of this. They want to build a community around this project. So it's just a different feel, just a different way to do it. But yeah, absolutely, I know.
Yeah, I have a couple things going on at the moment. A couple pokers in the fire, so I think it's going to be a little while. But I would love to get Chimera issue number 2 out the door.
Yeah.
And I have a couple people I've been talking to that would take over the art for Bong and for Marlin, for the art and the colors. So
yeah.
It's only a matter of time, but I also want to make sure that, like, we have the app coming out. Got to finish that. We have the print on demand coming out. We have pre-orders coming out.
Right.
So, and not to mention, we have an update of the site itself coming with some tweaks and some bonuses, and we have stars coming out and all sorts of fun stuff like likes and all sorts of craziness. So we have so much coming out. I don't feel that it has value yet, because I want you guys to succeed and the rest of the publishers and creators to succeed. And then when I have time, I will get into Chimera issue number 2.
Yeah.
It just, are you much in the same way in that you have so many things you could be working on that, I mean, besides your folder of stories, do you also have other stuff? Because you are getting pulled on. I see you all the time offering help. Are there some times where you're like, listen, I would love to do this, but I need to do this? Is there anything out and about that you'd love to do, you just haven't been able to yet?
I mean, I do everything I want to do. I eventually want to do plays again. So I used to do plays back in the day. I want to rent out a theater and put on a play. I have a really good idea for a play. So I want to rent it out, with my own money, put it on, and see how it goes. Because I feel pretty good about it. So that's on my to-do list. But really, it's all about comics for the next 2 years. Next year is getting everything put together. By the end of next year, I want to have 4 trades, for 4 collected trades. That's my goals for next year. So I've got a lot of work to do.
That's a little bit of writing.
Yeah. Well, I've got broke down. Obviously, we got the last issue coming out to finish that trade.
Yep.
VOODOO Nations. We're gonna do one every 3 months because Luke Stone's a very fast artist, so that helps out tremendously. We've got Cthulhu Invade the Oz, which is an original graphic novel.
Yep.
And then, believe it or not, Jeff, this out of the blue, 5 pages of colors happened for Dog Days.
What?
Randomly out of the blue. So maybe I'll have Dog Days at the end of the year because apparently we're going to spend a whole bunch of money on it in 2 weeks. So we'll see what happens.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
Well, hey, like I said, I'm glad that one's going because I think that's going to be a blockbuster.
Yeah, I think everyone really wants that to happen. So that's really cool. And that's not counting, I have 2 other projects that I'm working on right now that are in production that haven't been announced that I haven't talked about at all. So there's all sorts of stuff that I'm working on. And I just actually got someone owes me work for helping them with the Kickstarter because I did a lot of work. Pre-press, after press, sending it to the printer, all that stuff. And that person owes me 24 pages of comic art. So we'll have to figure out what I'm going to do with that.
That's a chunk of comic art.
It was a lot of work. He was a pain in the butt. I love the guy. If he sees this, I love you, but you're a pain in the ass. PG-13.
That's awesome. I mean, you got to tell it like it is.
Right. And he knows it. I told him, like halfway through the project, I was like, "You're owing me a full book." Like before, it was a couple of covers. We're past that, sir.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, has COVID affected you at all lately, or is it kind of just doing what you're doing? Like, there's no real change to it.
Well, so I own a web design company. That's my primary business. So that's affected me, right? I'm not getting new clients per se. It's more updating existing clients for COVID. Either, hey, our restrictions have been lifted or restrictions are back, especially on my bars. Hey, we're shut down. Hey, we're open. And the churches, hey, we're closed. Hey, we're open. Hey, we're having service. Hey, we're not. So that's affected me. So it's affected my household financially, but my writing and stuff, not really. It's actually it's allowed me a lot of free time to do interviews and to do stuff because I'm at home. My wife's at home and she can take a little bit to watch the kids if needed. So yeah, it's actually been pretty good. I mean, VOODOO Nations is, like I said, a result of COVID. COVID came and Luke is very fast and very efficient and I'm very good at writing scripts and getting into him. So we wrote it, got an editor, got it produced and finished it all up.
That's awesome. And when let's go back to plays for a minute. Do you find that the scripting for a play and the layout is very similar to that of a comic book? I mean, obviously you have stage left, stage right and things like that, but what are some of the differences between the two? Because I think people are like, I'm going to do a screenplay. And I'm like, well, a screenplay is, I think, different than a general, like a movie. Writing a movie is different than what you would do writing a play, and then it's different writing a comic. Are you able to identify some of the differences? Just because I think a lot of people think that they're all the same. Yeah,
my degree is actually in film.
Oh wow, okay.
So that's what I got my degree in. That's what I came to Florida for. So play, in my opinion, is the hardest because you are not allowed to leave a lot of information. Like you can only have mandatory things on the set. You don't get to dictate a lot of those things that are around. So you're not really describing the background, but things that are important, like if you need a couch, you need to make movements on the couch, you need to describe that. So it's what you omit and what you add is very important. But stage left, stage right, back left, back right, and lighting effects, all that, if you're writing a script properly, is super hard. It's super, super detailed. Unlike film, where they're like, film's just like, tell me what happens, give me as little detail as possible because I'm the director, not you, and get moving. And then comics are kind of in the middle, where they're like, they want a decent amount of detail, but you got to give the artist some freedom to do stuff. So you cannot necessarily write a play if you can write a comic. They're two different. And for comics, there is, unlike plays and screenplays, there is no set way to write a comic. There's the Marvel way, there's the deep script way, there's the loose script way. There's all different types for it. So it's a completely different ballgame.
Yeah, I don't think I could write a play. And actually, my wife and I were began watching Hamilton the other night.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how the hell did somebody put, not just the music is fantastic, and obviously where people are pacing and where they're moving towards, but the fact that everything revolves literally on the floor.
Right.
And that somebody choreographed that entire thing. In all the colors and the lighting, it blows my damn mind. Thinking that somebody could put that together and make it look so flawless.
Yeah, and the deep cuts. I mean, they go to different levels. Play people are very, very, very deep when they do stuff. So, for instance, did you finish Hamilton? Are you starting from the beginning?
Not yet. We're an hour in.
Okay, so
I know what happens to Hamilton.
Sure, of course. But so, do you remember when Lawrence dies? Have you got to Lawrence dying? Have you had intermission yet?
Not yet.
Okay. So
it's
when
right
people
we finished right before that.
When people start dying, there's one person who is always the instrument of death. And she'll flirt with that person of death throughout that. And every time there's a bad decision made, it's the same actress. Even though they're a backup person, that person is part of everything. His plays go that deep because people watch them so many times. They get that deeper cuts. Same with color tones and palettes and all that. That's very, very important when you're doing a play.
It blows my mind. Now there are people like us that, at least when I write a comic, I'm trying to visualize environment, but to your point, it is a static environment.
Right.
Like we know what we want to put in there, and obviously when it's drawn, it's solidified. In a play, sometimes shit happens.
Right.
And it doesn't, and it can be super expensive, but then in a movie, like you were saying, film can be like, hey, time is money. Like, this needs to be locked down tight because it costs God knows how much per minute.
Right.
As I start to, again, I am very well off in business. Like my experience in sales and marketing and engagement theories and stuff like that,
right.
I've got that stuff locked down. But as I start to see and think about other ways and speak to people like yourself and a bunch of the other publishers that have such a different background and a creative background, I find that I don't know shit. And it's actually not a bad thing. It's a great thing. It means that there are places that I can really be awe of and be like, oh my gosh, this is beautiful. Like, this is amazing. Where other people that have been in theater for their whole life might be like, I got this. But they come to you or me for marketing and they're like, how the hell do you do that?
Well, and it's a different model too, right? Like, no one gives a crap on the regular business what Pepsi or Coke spend their money on. Now and then they'll invest in something bad and get some newsworthy. But comics, they'll know these writers, they'll know these artists, they'll know what they're into, what they care about, and that's going to affect the sales, and that's going to affect the sales of your store. And it's so ridiculous. It's not just about the entertainment value, it's about the artists themselves. They're a part of the story when they really shouldn't be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was actually talking to Howie Noel earlier in the week, and he had kind of brought up the same point. We had been talking about writers and creators that have become, whether they want to or not, influencers.
Yeah.
And if you have an artist that could be amazing, that has done Batman and Superman and all sorts of stuff, and they have 25 followers, their value isn't as high as it was 20 years ago, because you will actually get more out of the people who have connected to somebody that has 20 or 30,000 followers on Instagram. Or
Right.
that says, hey, I just drew this is coming out Monday. That goes out to 30 or 40 or 50,000, depending on who you are. And compared to somebody who wants to charge the same amount or a little bit less for 25 followers. So do you agree that that has tweaked things a little bit? Like, maybe not for you and me, because we kind of know the flow. But
Right.
in general, are you saying the same trend that these people are, even without knowing, becoming influencers, and sometimes they can't handle it? Because you see them say stuff on social media and you're like, oh my gosh, did you really just say that? As you brought up earlier in the interview, there was somebody saying something that you're just like, did that really just happen? But are you seeing the same thing, the same trend?
Yeah, that happens all the time, especially in today's society. We're all polarized, and Facebook has got us to go into little polarized little circles, right? So we can go into a smaller and smaller group of circles to find people who can agree with us.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we say something and it expands outside of that circle. We get confused that we have to pay for repercussions because it wasn't in our circle. And then the people in that circle are telling you, no, it's okay. Don't worry about what you said, when it does matter. What you said did matter.
Yeah.
And it does impact. It doesn't matter how many times you say you're not a leader. You are a leader and you are making an impact. So those things happen on a regular basis.
Yeah, it's especially now due to the fact that the United States itself seems very polarized.
Yeah.
That certain people are forgetting that, hey, I'm going to tweet out something that's extremely racist, and my small group will agree with me, and then one person doesn't, it gets retweeted, and all of a sudden they are getting just torched.
Right.
And that has happened a lot inside comics as of late as well. Not only because of, Diamond kind of getting a pretty big hit, and then Marvel and what they did with Comixology, and now the new stuff that came out with Dynamite.
Right. Yeah. No, it's a crazy week. And go ahead. Sorry.
No, I mean, it is. I don't think people are understanding that there is a how am I going to say this? People's swords are very sharp right now. Like they're keeping them sharp, and they're the first thing somebody says that's even remotely outside of the skew is just like pounced on. And it used to be in the comic industry, or at least what I've seen, is when how women are drawn was one of the first things that I really saw pop up on social media, and people objectifying women and being like, why are they drawn like that? Real women aren't like that. And that was kind of one of the first, not first blowbacks on social media, but one of the big ones that really started a movement. And then there's been all sorts of little like spearheads here and there. But are you seeing that same type of thing where you're like, you almost need a social media manager just so you don't say something dumb?
Yeah, we're in the middle of a war, and I don't think people realize that. Marvel and DC are at the biggest war that they've ever been at. We look at like their Wednesday variants where they've kind of trolled a DC because of their Tuesday thing. But the switch of Comixology, like they took all those books and they put them to Comixology, and then they changed them. They are in Comixology first, but now they're in print. The only reason why they're in print, don't make any excuses. It's to slow down DC's growth because of this dual plan.
Yep.
It's putting books that they already have out that they can put in print to even if they take a loss on them, it's still going to be better that DC may take a loss.
Yep.
It's all a big game, and DC's playing a different game. DC's game is, hey, now we're doing our own thing. We're coming out on Tuesday. We're trying to change the game. We're trying to get our own foothold and doing our own different models. And we have comic companies basically, the not Mile High, Midtime Comics owns the DC distribution. Those people know how to sell comics. So they're going to be the ones who are making these decisions and helping these things. But really, the people who are paying the price are not the consumers. It's the stores.
Yeah. Stores are getting hurt really bad. And, on that same note, being a business guy yourself and in marketing, which I don't run into many people that have a background in that. Usually the people, well, lately it's been a little bit different, but not the marketing background that you have.
Right.
But, so what do you think indies need to do? Because you'll never be able to, I think people need to say, hey, there is no reason for you to ever try to think that you will be Marvel or DC. And to think so is just a waste of your time. You're not, that's like shooting for Jupiter when you haven't even gotten to the moon yet. But they also have 70 plus years of branding, that was print and newspaper and everything. So what do you think that indie, I have my own answer, of course. What do you think indie has to do in order to not necessarily leapfrog Marvel and DC, but to sidestep it and start their own path?
I think they have to go into different areas that Marvel and DC struggle in and do them well. And it's not just, a lot of people thought it was very bold to go into Walmart with the indie comics. That's just logical sense. Anybody can get into Walmart. I think that this is where a marketer, like a whole bunch of comic guys, that's genius, you get into Walmart. No. To get into Walmart, it's literally an application process. You either get approved or you don't per the store, and eventually you can get it if you hit that door hard enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you hit it long enough and hard enough, you can get into Walmart. That's not a big deal. But imagine if you could, change a Hobby Lobby or some of these chain hobby stores and get a section where they don't carry Marvel and DC, but they carry their own stuff. Get a distribution channel that takes stuff from conventions, all these IndieCons exclusive, not only put them online, because you'll notice that a lot of these great comic stores, the really good ones, they'll go to comic conventions, they'll grab every indie comic they can find, do an online auction to make them special and variants and doing all stuff, and they'll make killings off of your comic. If they can do it, you can do it. And what you've got to do is partner with those people and make sure that they are aware to be able to resell your stuff in these online auctions and stuff like that. What I think needs to happen is a lot of these online auctions that are doing really well is trying to get them to cater exclusively to indies and building indie communities. Not only will they make more money, but I think that everyone will make a lot more money. Because an indie guy, we're not under those stringent guidelines. I don't think that you should. I do think everybody should try to be in Diamond. I do, but it's just so you can have that badge. It's not to necessarily make or break you. And I think that's the difference that people make. You just need that badge. Don't worry about the repercussions of sales, how much you made, whether or not you lost property. Write something for somebody else so you can get noticed, and then keep doing your indie thing. If you notice, all the big guys, Donnie Cates, Jason Aaron, all of them have contracts that allow them to do indie work as well. The reason why is because they know owning your own property is wise and smart.
Yep. And we're actually, I know you and I have talked about this, but we're getting into that ability that if you come back from a con and you have 17 issues left of a NC Comic Con variant cover, that we will, in the next probably 6 to 9 months, be able to sell those for you.
Yeah.
And that is going to make a big difference, at least in indie, in my opinion. Again, indie's biggest problem is not the fact that they don't have great content, it's the fact that you don't have 70 years of branding behind it. So the more people that can read your content, I am of the mind that when you have, instead of 10 people buying it, now you have 1,000 people reading it. When you put out a variant copy or something that was exclusive from a Comic-Con, or you just do a pre-order of your next book, there are people that are going to jump on the print, because to your point, I love holding print. There is something about a physical copy that I really, really like. It doesn't mean I won't buy the digital copy. It just means that from my perspective, I want to own print, put it in a slide, put it in a sleeve, have your board in your bag, and then take it out, read it once, put it back, seal it, and put it away for as a collector's item, and then say, I've got it. Like, that's just my thing. But I think a lot of people are also of that. And I think that, to your exact point, I think that can be where indie really takes shape and form. And
that's the problem with indie guys, though, is they don't have someone who's a publisher or an editor telling them that readership and getting your name out there, from if someone else says your name is good, it's more important than you telling people it's good, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's use that scenario where I come back from a con. I could sell that on my site to my fans. I can get that done, and I will make a heck of a lot more money than selling it to you, Jeff. But by building a fan base somewhere else, I am expanding my reach, and that's what's important. And people, I think indie guys, we know that it's $50 a page, so we think about how many covers we got to sell to get that next $50 to pay that extra page, instead of thinking long term of what can we do to build all our stuff. You know, when someone interviews me and they're like, "Oh, I've been reading your stuff on Comixology for a long time," and I'm like, "What?" Like, I have fans all over the place that I don't know about because I didn't do the extra research to find them, and by me doing that, I'm missing opportunities.
Yep. Well, and I mean, this is not meant to be a pitch for Spinwhiz. It's just ended up that I love the indie community, and that's why I like it, because there's so many things that we can do outside the box.
Right.
It's just that people have to be ready to do things outside the box.
Right.
And that's a very difficult piece. Like, again, you and I get it. There are people that are trying to do the same thing. Marvel, DC, Image, Boom, Dark Horse, Valiant, Zenoscope, Aftershock. They're using those old Marvel, DC models of distribution and how they crank out content. And the indie guys not only shouldn't do it, they don't have to do it. And they haven't, but they keep trying to replicate that. We need to do the same thing, because this is the distribution model. This is how it works. And really what I'm saying from an analysis perspective is, you're only going down a path that's going to cost you more money than you might make. Find other paths to create that money. And then that's where you make a bigger profit down the road as well. So I'm 100% with you on that. I agree. So just a couple more quick questions, because I told you we break the 50 mark.
Yeah.
Where do you, a lot of the stories you have are different. Where do you get, like, did you grow up watching certain movies or reading somebody that you just loved and it kind of transcends into your writing or your story making? Or was it just kind of like whatever? Because I'm a big 80s guy. A lot of my writing style comes from the way Stephen King wrote. But from a visual perspective, a lot of it comes from the 80s movies like The Lost Boys, Goonies, any of the, Better Off Dead, just stuff like that is in my image. So I write one way, but I visualize in a different way. Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, all of those kind of come into that mix, even though just for this one particular one. Is there anything that you see that is fragmented into what you're working on now, and you're like, damn, like, yeah, I'm definitely this has helped?
So I tend to, when I write, I do two things. So obviously, I come from a film background, so I've watched pretty much everything. I was a big Quentin Tarantino fan, Robert Rodriguez, Kevin Smith, the people who were big in the 2000s. Those were my guys. And you can tell that in my scripts. If you read Broke Down, you can tell I'm very influenced by Quentin Tarantino. I'm very interested in Kevin Smith's dialogue and character development and doing that stuff. I'm very based on home-based stuff. I don't want to do superheroes. I don't want to do that. I want to write for Marvel and DC. Why would I write? Those are the superheroes I want to write. I don't need to create my own. They've already got the best superheroes in the world. Yep. That's why they keep selling them. I don't need to do that. So let's write things that I'm good at or that I'm interested in. The other part is I've had a lot of experiences in my life. My parents are drug and alcoholic stuff, so I've been in a lot of crazy scenarios, and I've seen a lot of crazy things happen, and that influences my writing, especially when I'm writing crime and stuff, because I know that bad people do good things, and I know that there's good people who do bad things, right? So I can understand and relate that, so it's really easy for me to see that because that's my worldview. And I know a lot of people struggle with that because good and evil was very black and white in their household, and I wasn't. My definition of a good family was Full House, which is not real. So I got to the point where I'm like, Full House isn't real. So what is this? And I am super blessed too, is even though I came from a family that was heavy drug and alcohol, my extended family wasn't on one side. I had very, very well off and well together family. So I knew that what I was living in wasn't right. And I know a lot of people don't have that opportunity, right? Trailer park on the mom side, trailer park on the right side. Not that if you're in a trailer park, you're necessarily a junkie, just a lot of them are, okay? So my worldview, when I do things, so when I'm writing something like Broke Down 4 Dead Bodies, I use a lot of those stories and a lot of those scenarios that I've been in, not 4 dead body scenarios. I exaggerate the scenarios, but kind of deal with those in the characters that I met in that world. And same thing with VOODOO Nations. I've been in ministry. I've done mission work, and I've gone to foreign countries, and I've watched missionaries come into areas preaching one thing that goes against the culture of everything around them, and these cultural wars happen. And I'm basically just, dramatizing it and putting it to the next level with voodoo and all that. But I've talked to people who've had encounters with voodoo priests and what that looks like and the impact of that.
Damn. Holy, that's deep, man.
Yeah, I'm pretty deep.
Holy crap. I feel like we can have an entire stream with different people who have had lives that they're like, I didn't have a normal childhood, or what I thought was a normal childhood. And it amazes me. I grew up very poor, even though I didn't know it. And I didn't know it until I was in my 20s, starting my own life, trying to get my own stuff going. And then after my wife and I got married, it really took form. As we started to put together a family, and I'm just like, holy shit, we were almost dirt poor. Like, we had a house, but I thought that peanut butter and jelly sandwiches every day and hot dogs and soup and stars, the Campbell soup, was what everybody ate. I didn't know until I was much older that, holy crap, there's like food. There's a lot of stuff. And I'm not saying that has affected me or my writing, nor do I mean to discredit or downplay what you have been through at all.
Sure.
But I think it's somewhere there, knowing that creates a vein of existence that does affect you writing somehow. Just knowing that, because maybe it's not your main piece, but there could be a character that it triggers in your mind or something like that. Do you agree, disagree, or is it kind of like, nah, I mean, I've passed it, it's good to go?
No, someone asked me yesterday, they were complimenting me. They've read a lot of my books, and they said that I am very, very good at character development and making sure every character has a voice. And a lot of indie guys struggle with that. And he asked, what I do to make those characters have a voice. And really what it is, the secret is every one of my characters, regardless of where they're at, if they're important to the story, they have a crisis. They have something that has affected every aspect of their life. Because I believe in the real world, everyone has something that has affected them and that has altered their course. And that is the thing that catalyzes every decision they've ever made, right? So that decision, it affects everything they do. So when I have a character in a scenario, I weigh, this thing happened to them, how are they going to respond having this crutch that's going to hold them down? It's like anybody who's dating someone for the first time, right? You're dating them, they're awesome, they're normal, and then all of a sudden, like a storm happens, and you find out they're really, really scared of storms. You don't know why, and it doesn't change your opinion of them, but it's just really weird, right? Like, that's their thing. That's that weird thing. So I always try to find that in a character, because that's what makes them special, and that's what makes them more real for me.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree with you more. And I think you go in. It's funny that you bring up character development. Do you feel that you do character development in that method because it resonates with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I basically go, all right, what major catastrophe did you have? All right, put that there. There you go, good to go. You know, just speaking of, for me, like I actually have a very successful business, and I do really well. But money has no value to me because of the way I grew up. Like it just doesn't have any value to me. And I'm lucky that I have a wife who's like, no, we have to take this and save it. Like my wife's like, all right, we're running a little broke. Okay, cool. I'll go make money because I'm really good at making money. But like I'm not driven by money. I'm not driven to get more and save, even though I absolutely should be. But I'm all about, all right, are we cool? Can I buy what I need to buy today? That's all I care about. And I know that that's absolutely a major problem that I have to deal with in life, but it also makes me a very unique giver and a neat perspective on life from things like that. So it's really interesting talking to people or hearing people out, Republicans, Democrats, all these things. We strum it all, but really it's all it is one hurt that we're all dealing with. And right now in our current climate, we are all afraid of something. Whether you're afraid of the mask, whether you're afraid of one party taking over, the other party taking over, whether you're afraid of the disease, whether you're afraid of someone in your family dying, whether you're afraid of that we're losing control of everything that makes this country great, you're afraid of something. And every interaction you deal with every day around the place is a response to that fear. So I'm trying, especially if you're listening to this, like give people grace right now because they're literally showing you their fear in every conversation.
Yep, I agree. And then fear coupled with ignorance is extremely dangerous.
Right.
And that's the other part that's what I'm afraid about is I see so many people who are, it doesn't matter if you disagree with me, that's fine. But
right.
just have a rational reason to disagree with me. That's fine. Like
right.
If you got your head screwed on tight, or the right way, and you have a valid disagreement, I'm happy to listen to it. I think that's great. I'm not going to disassociate myself because we think differently. However, if you are fearful and your ignorance creates a wave of more fear,
right,
then I feel that type of person is the current problem. And while I try to give grace, I also have the fear of I have to also protect my family from people like this because you're a nut job.
Yeah.
And they look like normal people. Like I would definitely say the nut jobs, quote unquote, that are around now that I see posting on social media and Facebook and Twitter and everything. They are not the same nut jobs who I thought were nut jobs in the 80s and 90s.
Right.
Of like, wow, you guys are crazy. Or jokingly, you guys are nuts. Now it's not. Now it's like, wow, like it's bad, it's dangerous, and it's scary. So it's almost doubling fear, if that makes sense. Like you have your one level that I 100% agree with you, and then you have stupidity. And or just I wouldn't even call it stupidity. I would stick with ignorance because I see a lot of intelligent people saying a lot of dumb things.
And for me, I just don't understand it. Like, as I'm going to attack the people who have these big giant conspiracy theories, right? Like, if 9/11 taught you anything, like we don't know what we're doing. We're just faking it, just like everybody else. It's okay. Like, we're doing the best we can.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we're not that smart to have these giant conspiracies. We're not. Like, we're just not. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's not a James Bond movie.
Right. We're just not. We've made a lot of bad calls. We have some bad leadership, and it's fine. And whether that bad leadership is at the top or it's at the bottom, at somewhere there's some bad leadership being made, and we're in this situation. There's no big giant conspiracy. No one's trying to make you wear masks forever. Like it's just not the way it is. Just try to take care of each other. We'll be fine.
Mm-hmm. So one last question, then I'll let you go because we're breaking into an hour. Do you feel that you personally cannot be yourself online because you think it will hurt the amount of people that might buy your comics?
So, and I don't know if Matt here is watching, but Martin he's a great creator. He's got from Cosmic Times. He always gets frustrated with the things I say on the internet because I have to be me. I just have to be. I try not to offend anybody. If you look at my Facebook list, when I post something that's controversial, I allow both parties to hack it out and fight, and I will never block anybody unless you give me a massive reason, like you came at me reason, not just disagreeing with me, like you came at me and tried to do me wrong on the internet, being some sort of crazy warrior. That's the only time. But that being said, I recently talked to, I'll say their names. They both became the co-publishers of Scout. So Charlie Stigney and Ed Byrne. I went against a creator who literally called me out. He private messaged me because he was mad about something I said on Facebook. Tried to call me out, like attacked me, and I did a verbal beat down video. I called him out, just like I'll call anybody out. If you do me wrong, I'll call you out. Everybody knows that. But those two creators came up to me, the two publishers of Scout. They're like, "Who is this guy you're arguing with?" And I start to explain. They're like, "No, that wasn't a question. That was a statement. Like, you are part of the conversation of indie comics. You're at a certain level, and you need to start acting like that level if you want to get to this level, because those people don't matter to you. You're arguing with people who don't matter. You're going to make it, and those people are just like pulling on your coattails to try to get exposure." Mm-hmm. And sure enough, that guy launched a Kickstarter 2 days later. He literally just wanted my exposure to get him to the next level. So I'm trying to be a little bit more cautious on that when I go at somebody. I'm not saying I'm never going to go at somebody if they hurt me or do something wrong to somebody I care about, but I'm going to be a little bit more cautious to make sure they're on my level, because if it's not on my level, you're not going to even hear a response.
Yeah, I'm when I post on something on social media, Facebook usually, and it's usually only to friends. I mean, you and I are friends on Facebook, so you see it. But it is very much down the middle, and it's calling something out that is just ridiculous.
Right.
It's not a right or a left. It's not a blue or a red. It's not a whatever. It's just, this from a human nature perspective drives me crazy. Does anybody else see this, or am I alone here?
Right.
And then it usually starts, people have said, well, it's either way. You could see it both ways. I'm like, that's fine. Then say the way you see it. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying that I feel this is wrong. Does anybody else feel this way? But I don't take politics into anything. Right. It just is not me. I am not a politician. I don't. My wife will tell you that I am straight up, like, I will tell you the way it is. But I am gentle and kind to you until you prove otherwise. I will try to be that person that's like, hey, I want to listen to what you have to say, even if I don't agree with it, unless it's so radically wrong, like from a ethical, moral perspective, that I can't.
Right, sure.
Like people that are racist.
Right.
I don't care if somebody who dislikes any race for any reason never buys one of my comics.
Right.
It is something that is in the core of me that I don't feel in this day and age that anybody should dislike anybody else because of the color of their skin.
Right.
It blows my mind that there's still people that do that. And so for people to, if they ever were to call me out and say anything, I'm going to be one of the first ones that's like, you're starting a party you don't want to be a part of, because I'm gonna come at you, and regardless of company or not, they're hitting on a moral characteristic that I find morally wrong. Right. But from a company perspective, that's why I don't get into red and blue. That's why I don't get on all this other stuff. It's because it really doesn't matter much, because in the next week, some other BS is going to come out. In another year, we're going to have another president, and crazy shit's going to be happening. And hopefully 2020 will be over, and for whatever reason, all the crazy will stop as long as we can make it to 2021. So I try personally to lock a lot of stuff down. Right. Again, unless it's just so drastic. And my parents they have mostly the same type of view, but not. I'm trying to say it while I'm not trying to get political. They are political, and I'm just like, you're missing. I can't talk to them anymore because I'm like, you are missing my point. you're not seeing it from my point of view. I don't care that you have another point of view, but at least respect that I have a point of view instead of, nope, this is the way it is. I'm like, I can't do it. So I just shut things down. But I think in our society, going back to the social media people that are influencers, there are people that are getting into big trouble, or oddly enough, they get in big trouble for one thing, but they get huge support from that like-minded group.
Right.
Where you're like, yeah, let's, be racist or hate gay people. And while most people will be like, that's ridiculous, there is a core of people that are like, I hate gay people too. I'm going to promote your book. And I'm like, but you understand that you're all bigots, right? Like, great that you're all there in one space so we know who you are. Like, it kills me. Sorry. Rant over.
No, you're good.
/rant.
And I definitely, I don't find your platform wants to shut. It's not about shutting down someone's voice. It's about getting to the actual meat of the issues, not the I feel this way, so it's right. It's not, doesn't work that way. The world doesn't work that way.
Right.
And it has proven that it doesn't work that way. So let's try to meet in the middle, right? Nobody complained about the stimulus package, but yet we did, right? You had half of the people going, so how do you like Trump now? You give that check back. And then the other half were going, but this is socialism. We won.
Yeah.
Right? It's just this crazy shenanigans of everybody. Instead of just going, why can't we go, what is best for the people? And why can't that just be okay?
Yep.
Right.
And at the end of the day, buy indie comics.
Right. Buy indie comics.
Because we have all the stories that are the ones that you want to hear, that aren't stuck inside a little box, aren't left, aren't right, or straight down the middle. Just good damn fun, people.
Right.
Except
for there's a comic on there's a social justice warrior comic on Indiegogo that I'm thinking about backing, because the balls of someone calling their book that, like, I have to check it out and see what they have to say.
I mean, I'm done. I would agree with you. Something that drastic, you kind of have to pick up.
Right.
So listen, man, we've been talking for a bunch. Your links are in there. The links for YouTubers are below. If you're on podcast, just go to spinwhizcomics.com. Check out Orange Cone. You'll find it there. Also, the Kickstarter will be on. Just go to Kickstarter and search Voodoo. It'll pop right up. It's #1. Anything else you want to get off your chest while we're here? I mean, we've been chatting away, and you haven't finished your beer yet. That means you've been talking way more, which is probably good, right? Although that is a bit. Oh man, chugging Guinness is not easy. You are a real man.
Well, I could have chugged it, but I didn't know when you were going to stop talking, so I figured out.
I mean, I could talk
I'll finish it up.
I can talk as long as you want to drink. I mean, I have been requested to pull the people together that drink either beer, scotch, bourbon, whatever, and create a drinking game that all of us indie guys are part of, that I'm running almost like a DM, but it is a game that we all have to drink during. So I can only imagine the cluster that is going to be us.
So what would be great if that game was you can't self-promote. So you allow people to talk, and then when they self-promote is when they got to drink. I think that would be fantastic.
Yeah, especially if I have hooks and questions that make you like almost have to.
Right. I think that'd be great.
Yeah, like, what book did you write? What was your first book ever? Oh, it was this. Oh, you got to drink. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I think that would be great. But no, check out VOODOO Nations. I think you guys will like it. If you like Broke Down's horror base, this is VOODOO Nations, a little bit more PG-13. I wrote it so my nieces and nephews can read it, but it does not mean it's not edgy. It is very, very edgy. The script of the first issue is literally the most well put together first issue that I think I can achieve.
Awesome.
And meaning, well, at the beginning and end, it's all very layered. It's all, for those who are religious, it falls around Ash Wednesday and Resurrection Sunday. All things happen within that time frame, and make references to all sorts of stuff. So you can read this as, hey, I want a horror story about voodoo. Cool, I've got you. It's going to be there, just like The Exorcist. You just need to know a little bit about religion, but it's not a religious thing. Or if you are a religious guru, I'm going to give you all the way down to the bottom of theology. So you want to come to me and go, I want to debate theology with you. Cool, let's do it. Like, I have both, and I have all the layers of this book. It's written to be as detailed or as not detailed as you want.
I love it. Well, there's 26 days to go if you're watching live. By the time you're watching on YouTube, there is probably 18 days to go, if I'm going to guess, due to my schedule, maybe 17, depending on when I can get it on YouTube.
So you better rush.
What's that?
They better rush.
I mean, you got to get it. You got to get it, especially with all the stretch goals you have. Like, you got a bunch of crazy stretch goals as well.
Yes.
Scrolling down through them. And it looks badass, too.
Yeah, no, we've got some really cool stuff. So check it out. And after this, we got Cthulhu Invades Oz, and then broke down 4. So you'll be seeing me a lot.
Heck yeah! Will you come back when Cthulhu's ready?
Yeah, maybe I'll bring the whole team. We've got
that would be fun.
We got a whole bunch of creators, so we'll see how many people we can fit on the Zoom.
Heck yeah! I say bring it. Well, listen, hang out with me just a minute. I'm gonna sign off with everybody.
All right.
And yeah. Hang out 1 minute. I'll be right back with you. Ladies and gentlemen, Travis Gibb, Orange Cone Productions, and VOODOO Nations out now on Kickstarter. Give me 1 second. I'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here. Awesome. Thank you, Travis Gibb, for spending time away from his family to talk about his awesome content. I will say one thing about Travis, especially now that I have him off screen, and I don't know if he can hear me or not, but he's no joke when it comes to depth and layers of his comics. So if you want to read it as a straight up, hey, here it is, just this is the way it's painted and that's it, that's great. But I guarantee you can go and actually to our site right now and read Broke Down 4 Dead Bodies, and by issue number 3, you'll be like, what? The man is like an onion when he writes, and you can get into it as much as you want or just as the layer. It could not be. He could not have said it the same, and he's not BSing you, because there are people that will BS you. He does not. So go check it out. Back VOODOO Nations. Thank you again for Travis Gibb being here. Check out Spinwhiz Comics for more of his content. There'll be even more coming up in the near future. There's going to be some print on demand, which is going to be sick from him. It's going to be amazing. Thank you again, everybody, for being here. We're going to be back on, what's today, Sunday? We're going to be back on Wednesday. We'll have a brand new show with a brand new person jumping on in with a brand new interview, and it'll be amazing. So thank you very much. Have a wonderful night. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Check them out. We'll talk to you soon. Have a great night.